right? I just told you that in January of 2024, we're going to be down on cow numbers again from where we were last year, and I believe we will bottom out in 2025. Now, we are forecasting, if we bottom out in 2025, then we start a slow progression of increasing the cow herd again, right? That's what we have forecast to happen. But I think it's really interesting to me to think about how long can these profitable prices stick around. If I lay the last decade on top of this one, so this is 2020, what if I lay 2010 on top of it? 2021, 2011, 2012, or 2022, 2012, 2023, 2013. Here's where I think we're going to be in next month, 2024, 2014. What were we forecasting in 2014 for how we were going to regrow the cow herd? Much a similar type of graph. What did we do? We turned around and we grew the cow herd so fast it was unbelievable, right? We saved every cow that had half of an eyeball and 3 tits, right? I mean, we saved every cow, we saved heifers, we grew the cow herd like crazy. So I just challenge you to think about profitability looks really, really good today. How long will it stay? It really depends what we do with how we regrow this thing. It also depends on what the economy does. This is not without risk, right? If the economy stubs its toe, or if we get into a spitting match with China on trade, we can change a lot of this stuff, right?
Or if the people are stupid come next November on election.
Yeah, there's a lot of political risk. There's a lot of things out there that are hanging in the balance. But again, I bring all of this up to say, if you are looking to rent cows or if you are looking to farm cows out, what's going to happen with our cow numbers? I don't think we're going to grow the cow herd nearly as fast as we have in the past. I don't think, because I think we're going to be much more cautious. The other thing I think about is I stopped and took a picture of my neighbor's farm. I'm far enough away from home, none of you will know my neighbor. But none of you did this, I'm sure. But how many of your neighbors, because they didn't have enough hay this last year and the grass didn't grow very well, grubbed their pastures literally in the ground? And I did not believe we could kill fescue, but we did. Our pastures, a lot of our pastures are really, really suffering. And so one of the things I want to caution you about is don't jump out and go to rebuilding the cow herd too fast. Try to get those pastures back in order try to make sure you got something to feed them. Because hay is coming down and feed is coming down, but it's not coming down nearly as quickly as it did 10 years ago.
Question.
Yes?
The two-pronged question. Number one, for leasing, is there enough outside money to be able to, if guys want to try and diversify their portfolios, to come into this? And the other thing would be guys retiring, is there enough of a young producer base to take up the slack?
Oh, that is a great question, and I'm not sure that we have enough young producers coming on that want to do it. However, the profitability has not been there to encourage them to do that. Whenever I was out in Wyoming, again, they told me it's just absolutely gorgeous out there, and I said, all right, well, you guys have got a head start on us in the Midwest on saving heifers, so if you guys started saving heifers, and most of them, they said we might have been saving a few extra, but not many. Why is that? The profitability's just not been there. Our cost of production has been so high up until this point, the profitability wasn't really there to encourage expansion or to encourage young producers to try to get started. Contrast that to how many people in 2014, how many people do you know of that suddenly went out and said, man, this thing looks good, I want to start buying some cows that never ran cows before? We had a lot of people in 14 and 15 that went in and tried to get into the cattle business that had never done it before because they saw the profitability there. And so again, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But it's going to take the profitability to encourage the young producers to try to expand. It is. Now, the other part of your question we will get to when we start talking about the shares. I think there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough to go around for the next few years for both the guy that owns the cows and the guy that's operating the cows. And it's not been that very, usually it's one or the other. in my 20 years in my career, usually it's either the cow owner that's making the money or the contract grazer that's making the money, not both. There's actually looks to be enough that both can be profitable for the next few years. But again, tell me what we do with her, tell me what the economy does. So if you think about a share agreement, a share agreement basically just says we're going to share in the profits based on what each of us contribute, right? So, I mean, this is as old as time, right? Sharecropping is as old as time. Back in the Bible they did this. I mean, it's very simple when you think of a crop share, right? I'm a landowner that I've got the land. I rent my farm out to the tenant who he provides the labor, he provides the planter and the combine, and we split the seed and fertilizer and chemical, in some type of percentage. And so we add up at the end, what am I entitled to as the landowner, what is the tenant entitled to as the operator? That's as old as time, right? Can we do the same thing with cattle? Yeah, we can do the same thing with cattle. We can do the same thing with a barber shop, right? And we do that all the time. A barber, some owner owns a barber shop and he hires some young kid to come in and cut hair. And they say, well, my barber shop's worth this much rent. The operator, he's gonna do the labor, and then we're gonna split the operating expense. And then they add it up, and the operator was contributing 65% of the profits, and the owner was contributing 35%, and they split the check at the end of the day. Again, that's an easy concept. That's an easy concept to do, but it's very different when you start talking about live breathing animals, right? How much can you screw up an acre of corn ground in 1 year? You can do compact, you can not spray it, not fertilize it, but you don't kill it, right? But when you got a living, breathing cow, you've got to have a lot more trust in that agreement, right? You've got to have a lot more trust. You got to think about things like death loss. You got to think about things like who's going to raise replacement females, how is the herd health going to be taken care of? All of these things make leasing animals, it's the exact same concept, it's just it takes a lot more communication and a lot more work, right? Because the owner and the operator both have to be willing to take risk and to trust one another. Again, if I send you animals, you can let them die by not taking good care of them, right? You've got to have a lot of trust in one another. So, why is this advantageous though? If we do this right, it can be really a win-win for both parties. If you think about it, a livestock operator, they get the chance to expand without having to go buy cows. So that young producer that you were just talking about, maybe I've got some land and I can't afford to go fill it, or maybe I even go rent some land, right? Maybe I can rent some land from one of my family members or something, but I don't have the money to go buy cows. Well, if I can get someone to send me cows on a share agreement, it gives that operator the chance to expand without having to be financially strapped to do it. Now, what about for the livestock owner? Well, again, I think you hit the nail on the head. How many of our producers are getting a few more gray hairs and might like to slow down, but you really don't want to sell your cows, right? Number one, you don't want to give it to Uncle Sam. You don't want to sell out and have to pay Uncle Sam the taxes. You've spent the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years investing in those genetics. You don't want to see them go away, but you can't physically take care of the labor to take care of them all that much anymore. So it's a chance to basically keep your animals and get some income from them, and then actually help a young person out at the same time. So it can really be a win-win from both standpoints if we do it right. Oh, and it also has some real income tax advantages, because one of the things is rental income. If you structure this right, rental income is not subject to self-employment tax, so you don't have to pay self-employment tax on that, as well as if you are someone that has not reached your full Social Security age. If you started drawing your Social Security check prior to your full retirement age, if you make too much, you have to give money back. You have to give some of that Social Security back. This doesn't end up getting triggered in rental income. So there can be some real tax advantages to doing this. Now, we can do it two ways. We can rent cows two ways. We can do them as what we call a fixed or a cash lease, which basically says, all right, I'm going to rent you cows, and you're gonna pay me $350 a year, or whatever it is. It's a flat rate, right? And there's some advantages to that. For the owner, I know what I'm gonna get, all right? I know what I'm gonna get. For the operator, they have full control over them, and they know that they're only gonna have to pay this much. But then if they do good, if they really do a good job managing it, they can increase their profitability from it. How do we figure out what that cash lease would be? Well, the reality is, it's the market, right? It's supply and demand. How many people want to send cows to someone else versus how many people want to rent cows from someone else? And it's interesting to me how we do those negotiations. Because often, I've got a couple of slides later, often it really depends on the situation. When we've got an upward market like we do now, whenever the market is getting better, what tends to happen is the operator tends to say, well, I'll work for free because I really, I think the profitability is going to be there. I really want to get some work. So the operator will tend to give away a little bit more of their share. Whenever the market is going down, it tends to be the opposite, right? The owner's saying, hey, I don't really want to run these myself, right? I'm afraid I'm going to lose money, so he's willing to give a little bit more of his share to someone else to take it. It kind of fluctuates with time. But really, it's just about that negotiation factor to say, what is someone willing to pay you and what are you willing to take? It's a really, really simple process. It's a really, really simple process to figure out the share agreement. It's just not easy. All right? So all you need is a blank sheet of paper.
I sound like a politician.
Yeah. All you need is a blank sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, and on one side identify what you are going to contribute, and on the other side identify what the other person is going to contribute.
Use the KISS method.
Yeah, it's easy, right? It's really, really easy. The problem is, how do you put a value on all of those things, right? I'm gonna send you the cows, and you're gonna provide the land, right? And you're gonna provide the labor. But how do you put a value on those? How do you put what those cows are worth, right? And we're gonna go through some of that. It's kind of, it's hard to come up with that stuff. It's really simple to do, but it's hard to say, okay, what is my land and corrals worth? What is my machinery worth? How many of us have a lot more machinery than we really need? I mean, what do you need to run cattle, right? What do you need? Tell me what you need.
Tractor and loader.
Tractor and loader, what else?
Baler, maybe. You can hard that done.
I was gonna say, I can get by without hay equipment. I won't give up my ATV. I won't do it without my ATV. I'll give up my pickup truck before I give up my ATV, but.
Why don't you take that and just put a blank sheet of paper up there and then you start filling it in?
Oh, well, we're gonna do that on a spreadsheet here. All right, we're gonna do that on a spreadsheet. All right. But yeah.
A real quick example, the way I've done it, is the owner supplies the cows, I supply everything else, he gets a third of the calf crop that's born.
Yeah.
I accept all the bills, I pay all the bills.
So how did you come up with that third?
I saw it probably 25 years ago, somebody was doing basically that out in Kansas. And I've done it twice, and I've been happy with it. And the first time, when I did it in 2000, the owner was paying $1,100 for bred heifers, selling 80-cent, 500-pound steers, at that time. And I figured over 5 years, he was making 10% of his money.
Yeah. So that's a good example of when we get to the spreadsheet and when we get to doing the calculations, what I think is cool about the tool I'm going to show you is it allows you to adjust and quickly change those. Because it makes a huge difference who's providing replacements, right? Are you raising replacement females in the contract, or is that separate from the contract? What are cows worth? We hit this exactly in 14 and 15. When cows were $1,100, we were having a lot of those 1/3, 2/3, or 70-30 or whatever. When cows went to $3,000, suddenly people started going to 50-50. The cow owner got 50% for nothing more than the cows.
A lot of those were 2,200s, and the calf was still bringing ducklings. Still bringing the 1/3, 2/3.
Yeah, so what it doesn't stay stagnant. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I was wanting to show you the outlook for it. Because these things change pretty quickly, right? There's times, again, as I told you, there's times that the cow owner is making a lot of money and the operator's not. And there's times that it's the opposite, that the cow owner's not making much and the operator's making a lot. So the point of this is, it's back to that negotiation, right? It's back to that working through this and keeping an ongoing relationship where you make sure that we created a win-win where both parties can make a little bit. If one party's getting screwed, the relationship's not gonna last. That's the reality, is the relationship's not gonna last if one party's making that at the cost of everyone else. But I do think it becomes interesting, in your instance, you're providing all of everything else other than the cattle, but I think this becomes really interesting where we, especially when we're transitioning from one generation to the next, where we're saying, okay, I've got the cows and the equipment and everything, and I want a young person to come in and be part of the operation. Well, then you start saying, well, okay, man, you got 5 tractors and balers and all of this stuff. Do you get credit for all of that? Or is some of that excess, right? And so it becomes hard to put a value on all of that stuff, all right? The other thing is we think about, what value is the labor? What value is the labor? Also, what value is the management? So who's going to provide the management? There's a big difference between just hiring a young kid that you go out and tell them what to do versus turning the operation over to someone that they're going to be in charge of the management of it, all right? And labor is one of those that I find it's really hard to get a handle on. Do you have any idea how many hours you spend per cow? Does anyone have any idea how many hours they spend per cow? I ask that question a lot, and I rarely get a good solid answer. I argue that it's probably a lot higher than we think it is. In our budgets, we use 8 hours per cow, but I argue it could easily be twice that much. And it does depend a lot on the size, but it also depends a lot on the system. I worked with a lot of producers that run 1,500 cows with 2 or 3 men, but I've also seen a lot of people that, have 40, 50 cows that they're out there a lot, so I think labor is one of those that's hard to get a handle on. Again, I mentioned, how will replacements be calculated in it? Do you raise replacements in it within the, if the worst scenario I had is someone called me up one day and they said, all right, we've been in a share agreement for a year, now we're getting ready to wean calves. What do we do about heifer replacements? And I'm like, oh crap, you mean you didn't talk about that ahead of time? All right, because do you pull out replacement females before you split the check? Or is that, or does the cow owner, what's a whole lot cleaner and simpler is if the cow owner says, I'm gonna send you 100 cows and we're gonna split every bit of the check at the end, and any cows that we have to pull out because they're open or die, I will replace those with other cows. That becomes a lot easier and cleaner versus if you say, I'm gonna send you 100 cows and we're gonna take 15 heifers off of that right off the top, and they have to go back in and you have to feed them and develop them for the next year and a half. That's part of the agreement. Of course, automatically, if you're going to do that, if you're going to take those 15 heifers off and put them apart in it and they have to raise them, then the operator gets a bigger share, right? Because they're developing the owner's next generation.
Isn't there a lot to do though, that we can go to the sale and buy cows, and then if you've been in the business for 50 years and you're trying to have good genetics and you cull and you keep nothing but the best and sort all that off. What is that worth?
What is that
You're
worth?
not spending $6,000-8,000 for a bull for nothing.
Right. What is that worth compared to going to the sale barn and buying? Yeah, that's what makes that difficult, right? That's what makes that difficult.
And the one thing about going to a sale barn, maybe not so much this year, but usually most years if a cow goes to the sale barn, there's a reason she's there.
There's a reason why she's there. Yeah. So again, that's part of that negotiation process. If you've invested in the superior genetics, it's not just a $1,100 cow, right? It's something different. And so what credit do you get for that? That's why I said it's simple, it's just not easy. It's just not easy. All right, so the other thing to think about is the length of the lease. Are we going to do this for multiple years or just 1 year? I mean, if we're just only going to do it for 1 year, I'll go buy the crappiest bull and put on your cows, That's another reason why I always said a cow owner should provide the bull as well. Because especially if there's a chance he's gonna get the cows back, right? But, you know, what does the condition of the cows need to be when they come back? And again, I go back to the crop ground versus a breathing animal. I preach this, and I've had cows out on 2 different type of agreements, and both have ended badly. Now, do I still think this is important, and I still think it's an opportunity? Absolutely. But I have seen the flip side of it, where if someone doesn't take good care of your cattle, they can come back to you in a very bad condition, right? And so it ups that, you know, you've got to communicate, you've got to work with them, you've got to trust them. It's just so much more, you got to really up your game on communication and working with the person, all right? And make sure you've got the right one, all right?
It's kind of like leasing land. Nobody wants to lease land, crop ground, for 1 year now on
Right.
a farm. They want
Right.
to do it for 3.
Right.
So, but you kind of got to feel your way, and you think everything's right, but it can go a train wreck really quick.
And that's why I always say, I don't want to sign a multi-year lease the first year. I don't want to sign a multi-year share agreement in the first year. Let's do it for a year, and if it works good, then we go into a multi-year. Because I've seen way too many times where someone starts it, they sign a 5-year agreement, they get 6 months into it, and they're like, how do I get out of this? I'm like, you don't, you signed a 5-year agreement, right? Because it is so hard. The other thing is, it's hard for the cow owner, especially if they're wanting to slow down and retire. You will never feel like someone has taken as good a care of your animals as you would have. And I see it repeatedly that a person thinks they want to do this. They think they want to turn them over to a young person. 6 months in, they're like, nah, I wish I'd have never done that, right? Because you just don't feel like they take as good a care of them as you would have. And so that's why I always say you dabble your toe into the water at first, a trial period to see if it works, and then if it works, then we go ahead and jump in, all right?
That's the owner that you hope if he's retiring, he sends you the cows and he moves to either Florida or Arizona.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can't see what you're doing to come try and micromanage.
So, I'm gonna hop over, I've got about 10 to 15 minutes left. I'm gonna hop over and we're gonna jump to the tool that I've kind of been talking about. At aglease101.org, all right, that is where Darla and I send a lot of people for lease publications. That's where you can get fill-in-the-blank lease forms. You can get different guide sheets about leasing. It's just www.aglease101.org. But on there actually is, in the resources part of that, there's this beef cow lease worksheets. All right, beef cow lease worksheets. And what it is it's actually a worksheet to do what we just did, that blank sheet of paper. All right, that is what it does. And so I'm going to hop out of here and hop over to this. So basically, it's just a spreadsheet. And Darla will help everyone do this, right, Darla? You just go to Darla, and Darla will help you do all this. But it's basically just a set of spreadsheets that allows you to input things. So the first thing I'm going to ask you when I go to General, the very first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you want to raise replacements inside this lease or outside this lease? This is your guys' example you're building. What do you want to do? Inside the lease or outside the lease?
Outside.
All right, so let's do it outside. So to do it outside, I put a 1. If I wanted to raise them inside, I do 2. All right? So, what's your land worth? What's pasture land worth today?
Depends on which side of the river you're on.
Huh?
Depends on which side of that Mississippi River. you're
Yeah,
on.
okay. What's your land worth?
Are you talking the guy whose land?
Pasture land. I'm going to put a cow on.
Just any pasture land?
Any pasture ground.
It's not the owner's land or the,
No, I got to put a value down here.
$10,000.
I'd go 6.
All right. I got 45. Let's just leave 45 there, because it's not going to make that big a deal. Because all that is doing is calculating the taxes. Now I can make it a percentage if I want, but that'll never work, right? If I do. So instead, I'm going to put a rental rate in here. I can either do a percentage of what it's valued, or I can put a rental rate. I put $50. What's rental pasture for here?
Adams County, some just cash rented out for pasture for $110 an acre.
Yeah, I've seen 100 too.
The last several I figured have been 60 to 65.
All right, let's put 60 in. Let's put 60 in, all right? I've seen 100 and 100 plus, but that's not the common, right? So,
I've been getting 50 for a couple of years.
yeah, all right. So what's your hay cost per ton? Now, you're gonna here's where we're gonna be that argument. Am I gonna bale it in there, or am I gonna bring it? Let's just say we're gonna buy it for now. Let's just make it simple. What's hay per ton?
Common hay, $100 a ton?
$100 a ton? Man, I wish I could get that.
I don't know, I'm not buying hay, so.
What is it? Someone tell me.
I thought it was about $100 per round.
Yeah, it's about $100 a round bale now, but
So
Plus
175.
shipping.
So go back to the real world and put in 80 then.
80 a ton or 80 a bale?
No, 80 a bale.
Right. All right, so that was 160. I had 160 a ton. Let's do 160 a ton. All right. We're not going to feed much feed. We're going to feed just a little bit. What would commodities cost you per ton? Soy hulls, distillers.
Wet distillers is costing $110 a ton.
100. That's wet. So I've got 275. So dry would be about 250, 275 a ton. All right. We're not going to feed much in this. You can go in and you can put things like your vet, your utilities, different things like the big thing. What are you going to put on labor? I have 8 hours per cow at $17.70 because that's what we used in our university budgets. What do you guys want to put for labor? How many hours?
What is that in the time frame?
That's a year.
A year?
This is per cow per year. How much labor do you want to put per cow?
You're working for pretty cheap.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do you hire somebody at 1770 to be?
See, I thought you were going to tell me it was too high because I thought you guys all wanted to work for free. All right, so what do you want me to put?
$20.
$20? All right, $20 an hour. All right, so that's just our miscellaneous, all right? Let's go over here. Now, in this operation, I've got 75 cows, all right? I've got 15 young cows, 15 old cows, and 45 middle-aged cows. So with 75 cows, I got 3 bulls, 1 young bull and 2 older bulls. What's those cows going to be worth? What do you want to put value on those cows?
1,500.
$1,500 for the young ones, old ones, all of them. Okay? What are you going to put for your bulls?
5. What you got?
You're,
I got,
for salvage value, you mean?
no.
No, buying value, purchase.
Okay, I was saying, the salvage value, you still go
Let's
$2,000.
go,
Let's go what?
I'm gonna go 6.
Oh, wow. It is interesting. Zach and I always had this argument. Northern Missouri pays more for their bulls than Southern Missouri does. It's interesting. So I do have salvage value here, by the way, which I'm going to make you lower your salvage. If your cows are only going to be worth $1,500, I've got $1,250 salvage, and your bulls 5 and 6, I've got a couple thousand salvage. I'm going to make you lower your salvage value a little bit on those cows because I think they're not going to. If you're going to lower your cow value to $1,500, I got to have some difference in the difference between the price and salvage. What's your interest? Interest charge on breeding stock. What's an operating note today?
9?
Wow, that hurts.
Yeah.
All right. How much equipment am I going to put in here? What equipment are you going to use to raise these cows? And again, this does not care who's providing it, whether the owner or the operator is providing it. Just what equipment do I need to take care of these cows for a year?
Tractor.
ATV, tractor and loader, and if you're doing a lot of cross fencing and rotational grazing, you're looking at what are you putting on the value for your temporary fencing?
Right. So this is, you can change it. I'm just going to show you what I threw in last time. I threw in a used tractor for $25,000 with a 10-year useful life and a 35% salvage value. I put in a $10,000 brush hog, a $5,000 ATV, and a $12,000 stock trailer. I thought that was pretty much minimal. I figured most of you had way more than that, right? That's minimal, but that's what I put in. Now, I put in, and this is where you get to saying your barns and corrals and all that stuff, what are they worth? I just put in a $25,000 old barn or machine shed with a 20-year useful life. And again, it's really not costing me that much, you know, because I got a 20-year useful life. I got 3 or 4 concrete waters for $2,500. I've got a $10,000 corral, which is pretty cheap, and a $6,000 squeeze chute. I thought like that was kind of basically the bare minimum of what I needed to take care of some cows. Like you said, I would say most of us have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times that in equipment, right? How many acres per cow-calf pair? Because remember, I charged you $60 rent, so how many acres per cow? 5? I thought you northern Missouri boys was more efficient than that. I got a 1 back there.
I was gonna say 2.
This is, so I bought your hay, so this is pasture. I bought your hay. So,
3.
3, all right, I got 3. I used 2 acres for the replacement females. What % are you going to replace per year? What's your cull rate? 12? Okay. All right, now this is, how many days a year are you gonna feed hay? I've got hay feeding 120 days. How many days a year are you gonna feed hay?
100 days.
100 days?
But you gotta be on your A game to do it, so.
I would say with the drought condition, that's close, but you better add a little bit more because you was talking about the condition in the pasture.
All right,
Yes.
You better have a little better pasture and not feed so much hay.
all right, let's say 110, let's just split the difference. Let's say 110 days. I fed, in this one, I fed 3 pounds of feed for 60 days. Do you guys do that or not in the winter? I see some head yaks, I see some head no. Also depends if it's fall versus spring calving, right?
If you're not calving until May, it makes a big difference.
Right. So are we gonna feed a little bit of feed or not? It's not much, it's not gonna make that much difference in the budget. All right, so I'm seeing no, all right? Are you gonna feed those replacement heifers?
Yes.
I've got them feeding for 6 months, 3 pounds a day. Is that good, bad, or do you feed them for 90 days, 6 pounds?
Mostly pasture and a little bit of protein. You haven't got any, just for the heifers, just feed them a little protein and pasture.
All right, I'm gonna leave that right there then.
Give them some protein to go with the pasture, but mostly pasture. Don't feed them much hay.
All right, this becomes whether we do management rate, and this is, well, I'm just gonna skip over that because I'm about out of time. You can put in a management charge, or you can just charge labor. You can do it either way, all right? I think right now I just have labor. Now, you put in the calf value, because we're gonna see who's gonna split the profits, right? So you put in what the calf value. What I have put, you tell me if you like this or not. I have put in steer calves at 590 pounds, heifer calves at 550, cull cows at 1250. I put in the steer calves are gonna bring you 305 a pound. The heifer calves bring you 280, and the slaughter cows bring you $1 a pound. Do you like those numbers? Do you wanna change them?
That's pretty close to home.
Okay, that's pretty close to home. All right, you ready for the split? What do you think based on the numbers you've given? What do you think? Well, okay, I have to hop over here. I do have to hop over here and say, now in this, so this allows you to say who's contributing what. All right, this allows you to say who's contributing what. This allows you to put the operator share. So what I currently have is the operator share of the cows and bulls is nothing. The cow owner is providing the cows and bulls. The operator is providing all of the machinery and equipment, all of the building and fences, all of the pasture, hay, blah, blah, blah. So if you're splitting any of this, then you change that percentage, right? Or this is where it becomes really easy if I say, okay, I'm the guy that has the land and the cows, and I've got a young producer that's going to come use my land and my cows, and they're going to bring their own equipment or something. My point is you can indefinitely split this however you want to. Again, it's that blank sheet of paper. You can split this however you want to, all right? I currently have that the owner is providing the cows and the bulls, the operator is providing everything else. And what I've currently done is on this management, you can choose right here, in this box, you choose who gets management charge, right? So if I do a 1, then it calculates the management based on a percentage of the assets used. If I use a 2, it gives a management charge based on the value of production. 3, the average of the 2, or 4, no charge. Right now, I'm not charging a management charge. Do you want to charge a management charge or not? Alright, so we're not going to charge a management charge for right now. You can change it, you can go back and change it. So, what do you think the split is for the guy just providing the cows? Nothing else based on this, what we've done. What do you think the guess is before I scroll down?
32%.
I was gonna say 33.
33%. Alright, let's scroll down. Cow owners should be entitled to 25% and the operator 75%. Based on the numbers you guys use.
With the owner supplying the bulls also?
Now, what makes this cool is let's just go back over to A and let's say, man, you guys had cheap cows. I'm gonna say those cows are worth a whole lot more. Alright? Now let's go over to worksheet 1. Now it just jumped to 34% the cow owner gets. So all you gotta do is change the cells and play with the numbers, and it really allows you to see, okay, well, what if we split the inputs? What if I change hay price? What if hay goes down, right? And so it allows you to look at this. This is a really cool little tool. This is a really cool little tool. And it actually will calculate it. It'll actually calculate it on a cash value as well. So the livestock ownership cost, this is why at $2,500 cows and $5,000 bulls, the cow owner has $533 per cow in just owning the cows as far as the depreciation. And depreciation interest, you guys did charge 9% interest. If you change that interest, that'll change that as well. But the cow owner should be entitled to, you could write them a check for $500 if you'd rather do a cash lease instead of a shared lease.
What's that calculated per day?
Huh?
What's that?
About $1.30 a day.
I wonder.
About $1.30 a day. 365 days at about, it may be $1.35. It's $1.30 or $1.35.
That's what you're saying the cow owner gets.
That's what the cow owner would get. So 500 divided by 365, $1.35. Yeah. The bell went off. I'm supposed to shut up. But I think this has a lot of potential for us as we look to expand, people that want to slow down and want to retire. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to be looking for someone because with my job, I've got to slow down, but I think I've got one of those cow herds that I've invested 30 years in that I don't want to see sell. But I just don't have time to take care of them because I'm on the road all the time with my job. I'm going to be looking for a young person to farm cows out. But I'm going to be using some of these numbers and saying, okay, how long do we keep these calf prices? What kind of a split do we do? One of the first splits I did with someone many years ago with a young person. At that time, it was when cattle were going down. It worked really well for the first year or two, but when calf prices tanked, then the operator became the one making all the money and the owner became making nothing. But again, I think we can work with this. I think we negotiate this. I think we can make these things work. I think they have a lot of potential for
You
us.
change those figures every year based on the market and what's going on?
I don't think you change them every year, but I think you have an ongoing negotiation process to say as major factors change. I mean, again, nobody better be getting screwed, right? We better be working together with this so this can be a win-win for both of us. If one party is making too much screwing the other one, then the relationship's gonna fall apart. I've seen a lot of the 70-30s, 1/3, 2/3, but when cattle got high, I saw a lot of 50-50s, right? I saw a lot of 50-50s. So,
I know, Wesley, I've ran more scenarios this year than I've ran in my 25 years with extension.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So
There's a
thank-
lot of interest out there, I think.
there is. Thank you, Wesley, very much. We appreciate